Hi, Deb Pervin, and today's Tuesday Tweak is about your trends. Everyone looks at revenue and net profit and the trends. Did you grow from last year? Did you make more money than last year? But I really want you to spend some time looking at the margins. And now's a good time because you're just finishing up your year-end financials. So I want you, if you can, to pull up the last 3 years and let's look at the trends of those margins. So when I talk about trends, when I grew up, Twiggy was the trending fashion model, and this was very shocking, these very short skirts. But we're not talking about fashion trends, we're talking about financial trends. And these are really going to help you understand where your business is headed and if you're headed in the right direction. So how are they trending? Now, when you have margins increase, that's a good sign. You want your expenses to decrease relative to your revenue. Now, this is hard to see when you're just looking at the numbers, because if your numbers are growing, because your business is growing. So you want to look at those margins. And a margin is the number divided by revenue. So your revenue in 1 year, in a year ago, was 800,000, and now your revenue is $1 million. That's $200,000 in growth. Okay, but you're going to also expect your expenses to grow, and you want your expenses to grow slower, obviously, than your revenue. But what happens when you have that kind of growth is people aren't paying attention to their expenses, and so their expenses are growing faster than their revenue, and this becomes a problem very quickly. This is why we look at your variable costs and your fixed costs separately. We know your variable costs are going to be going up at the same time your revenue is. Your fixed costs should not be going anywhere, and therefore the number's going to stay very relatively the same, and your percentage, your margins are going to get bigger. Does that make sense? I'm going to show you an example. Here's my golf course. And what you'll see is, here you see the growth from 16 to 18, 740, $1.2 million, $1.6 million. Here are growth trends. But what I looked at was, how did my revenue streams do? So my memberships went from 37% of revenue to 35% to 33%. Now, this is what I expected to happen because there are only a certain number of memberships that I was willing to sell. And so even though I raised the price, the number of people who bought was fairly constant. So that's what I expected. I also expected my greens fees, my daily fee players, to increase. They went from 46% to 55%, but then went down to 52%. So that was a shocker. So I had to figure out what was going on. Why was that smaller? And really, it looks like a lot of revenue came out of my restaurant, and that's what changed. Now, my restaurant wasn't making money, and I was serving dinner that year, and I decided that was a bad idea. So the following year, my greens fee revenue went back up. Same thing happens on your fixed cost, on your variable costs. 103 were my cost of goods sold, went down to 78, went down to 73%, which increased my gross profit, as it should. Same thing with my fixed costs. My fixed costs did not change considerably, but they did go up, mostly because I paid myself more. And you can see that my fixed costs went down on a pretty good clip. Okay? So this is what I want you to look at for your business. How are those trends behaving? Are they doing what you expected? If you have any questions or stories, I'd love to talk to you. I'll see you next week.